Hello and welcome to the world of literature. I am your host with another lecture under the series 100 and 100 famous novels. We are dealing with 100 famous novels from English literature, and we have begun the series with Charles Dickens, who is known as the conscience of the Victorian era, one of the most significant novelists that Victorian age produced. In the previous lecture, we dealt with the Pickwick Papers, and today we will be dealing with another novel by Charles Dickens. And let's begin with some clues about the novel that we will be dealing in today's lecture. So, the novel is about a child who is orphan, who in the course of the story is taken over by around 5 guardians, out of which 4 prove to be cruel. Once in the course of the story, he falls into the hand of a criminal, and finally he is settled with a very kind-hearted guardian. And our protagonist of the novel is born in the year 1827. Yes, today we are talking about Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Oliver Twist is the second novel written by Charles Dickens. So today we would be dealing with Oliver Twist. But before we take up the story and the narrative of the novel, let's have a look at the characters of the novel with whom we will have to deal in the course of the story. Now the characters are on your screen, and the characters that we will be dealing with in the course of the story are Oliver Twist. He is described as an orphan. We have Mrs. Mann. She is described as a harsh guardian, and she is the second, she is in fact the first guardian of Oliver Twist. Then we have Mr. Bumble. He is described as a parish beadle, and he happens to be the second guardian of Oliver Twist and a very cruel man. Then we have Mr. Sowerberry. He will be the third guardian of Oliver Twist. Next, we would be dealing with Noah Claypool. He is described as a coward boy who is not on good terms with Oliver Twist. We have Jack Dawkins. He is a pickpocket. He is known as the Artful Dodger. Then we have Fagin. He is a criminal, boss of a criminal gang. Then we have Mr. Brownlow. He is a kind-hearted guardian that Oliver Twist gets in the course of the story. Then we have Nancy. She is a prostitute. We have Bill Smikes. He is described as an abusive lover of Nancy and a criminal. We have Miss Rose and Mrs. Melai. They are the female characters who happen to be very kind-hearted towards Oliver Twist. And then we have Mrs. Corney. She is described as a wealthy matron of a workhouse. Now, these would be the characters around whom the story of Oliver Twist will revolve. Now, we will take up the story from here onwards, and dealing with the story on your screen would be a PowerPoint presentation wherein the important points would be highlighted. Now, Oliver Twist is born to an unnamed mother who dies while giving birth to Oliver Twist in the year 1827 at Northampton. Now, Oliver becomes an orphan at the very birth. After he becomes orphan, he is taken over by Mrs. Mann, who looks after him for 9 years. Now, all these 9 years, Oliver Twist lives in a very desperate condition. He is ill-treated. He lives a miserable life at the orphan center. But at his 9th birthday, Oliver leaves the orphan home. Now, he is taken over by his second guardian, Mr. Bumble, who is a parish beadle. He spends some 6 months at the parish of Mr. Bumble, and here Oliver is provided with little food to survive. Once During supper, Oliver Twist asks for more food and he is beaten. Then Mr. Bumble offers £5 to any person who can take Oliver in his custody. And it is here that Mr. Sowerberry takes him in his custody. So, at a very young age, Oliver Twist has changed three guardians. He treats Oliver better than others, that is Sowerberry. He uses him as a mourner at the children's funerals. Now, this place was initially occupied by Noah Claypool. Mr. Sowerberry and his wife are not going smoothly in relation. Therefore, his wife disliked the presence of Oliver at the home. Here, Oliver suffers a lot at the hands of Noah Claypool, who is actually jealous of Oliver's promotion to the mute. As the relationship between Noah and Oliver become harsher, one day Noah insults Oliver's mother, calling her a regular right down bad un. And Oliver attacks the Noah and beats him, though he was much bigger as compared to Noah. Now, Mr. Mrs. Sowerberry takes the side of Noah and helps him to beat Oliver in return. And Oliver is terribly beaten by Noah. Later, Mrs. Sowerberry asks her husband as well as Mr. Bumble to meet Oliver, revealing his mischief, and Oliver is again beaten. And later, Oliver goes into his room at night and weeps. And this is for the first time in the novel that Oliver breaks down and weeps. Oliver thought of escaping from this condition and he runs away to London. Now, Oliver, when he escapes to London, the first person he encounters in London is Jack Dawkins. Now, this is the second half of the story of Oliver Twist in London. Now, this happens to be a trademark of Dickens novels, that most of his characters or protagonists would be born in the countryside and then they will head towards London expecting a better life. And same course is taken by Oliver Twist, and there he comes across Jack Dawkins, who is commonly known as Artful Dodger, who is known for pickpocketing. Now, Jack Dawkins provides meal to Oliver and tells him about a gentleman in London who will provide him lodging for free. And the innocence of Oliver could not understand the wickedness of Jack Dawkins. Oliver follows him to the gentleman's house and unwittingly falls in with the Jewish criminal Fagin. Oliver lives with him for some time without considering them as criminals. In fact, he considers them workers who make wallets and handkerchiefs. Later, when Oliver also thinks of making Brownlow, when he finds his handkerchief missing, Mr. Brownlow turns round, sees Oliver Twist, and he pursues him, thinking that Oliver Twist is a thief. And other joins the chase, and Oliver Twist is caught and presented before the magistrate. Though Oliver is caught, but Mr. Brownlow is not convinced with himself regarding the Oliver being a pickpocket. Later, there comes a bookstall holder who had actually seen Dodger committing crime, and he clears Oliver of the charges, and Oliver is set free by the magistrate. Mr. Brownlow takes Oliver home, and along with his housekeeper, Mr. Badwin, cares for him. Now, this is for the first time in the story that Oliver Twist gets a good caring guardian. Now, Oliver stays with fourth guardian in his life, that is Mr. Brownlow. Here Mr. Brownlow takes care of him and he recovers quickly and blossoms in a friendly and loving environment. But his bad luck accompanies him and his happiness is interrupted by Fagin again. Now, Fagin is afraid that Oliver may reveal their criminal activities, so he wants to take him back in his gang. When Mr. Brownlow sends Oliver out to pay for to pay for books. One of the gang, a young girl named Nancy, whom Oliver had previously met at Fagin's accost with into the life of crime, Fagin forces him to participate in burglary, in thief, in the acts of theft. Nancy reluctantly assists Oliver in recruiting him, all the while assuring the boy that she'll help him if she can. Bill Sykes, after threatening to kill him, that is Oliver Twist, if he does not cooperate, sends Oliver through a small window and orders him to unlock the front door. The robbery goes wrong because Oliver Twist is not a professional robber like Sykes. However, and Oliver is shot and wounded in his left arm and at the targeted house. After being abandoned by Sykes, the wounded Oliver makes it back to the house and ends up under the care of the people he was supposed to rob. And the people this time that he comes across are Miss Rose and the guardian, Mrs. Maillard. However, the misfortunes of Oliver continue to follow him. Now, Fagin is joined by another character named as Monk, and both plan to destroy the reputation of Oliver. As Fagin fails to make him a criminal, Monk along with Fagin want to keep him away from his past. Monk is apparently related to Oliver is in some manner, although it is not mentioned until very later. Now, back in Oliver's hometown, more information for a price, and later Monk meets secretly with Bumbles. After Mrs. Bumble has told Monks all she knows about Oliver Twist, these three arrange to take a locket and a ring which had once belonged to Oliver's mother and toss them into a nearby river. Now, Monks relates this to Fagin as a part of the plot to destroy Oliver, but Nancy overhears all the conversation, and now that there is a development of plot, there is development in the character of Nancy. She becomes a round character now, and she makes an attempt to save Oliver Twist, and she goes and informs Oliver's benefactors. Nancy, by this time ashamed of her role in Oliver's kidnapping and fearful of for the boy's safety, goes to Rose Melai and Mr. Brownlow to warn them. She knows that Monks and Fagin are plotting to get hands on the boy again and hold some secret meeting on the subject with Oliver's benefactor. One night, Fagin realizes that Nancy is up to something and resolves to find out what her secrets are. Meanwhile, Noah Claypool has fallen out with the undertaker, Mr. Sowerberry. He stole some money from him and fled to London. Now, from the story is Artful Dodger, who is also known as Jack Dawkins, the first one who met Oliver Twist in London. Later, Noah is sent by Fagin to dodge Nancy and discover her secrets. She has been meeting secretly with Rose and Mr. Brownlow to save actually Oliver from Fagin and Monks. Fagin angrily passes the information on to Sykes, twisting the story just enough to make it sound as if Nancy had informed on him. Now, believing Nancy to be a traitor, Sykes beats her to death. Now we have second character being eliminated from the story, and she is Nancy, who is killed by Sykes in a fit of rage, and later he flees to the countryside to escape from the police. There, Sykes is haunted continuously by the visions of Nancy's ghost and increasingly alarmed by the news of her murder spreading across the country. He attempts to flee back to London to find a hiding place, only to be killed when he accidentally hangs himself while attempting to flee across the rooftop from an angry mob. Now we have third character being eliminated from the story: Artful Dodger, Nancy, and now Bill Sykes. Now Monk is caught by Mr. Brownlow and is forced to divulge his secrets. And we come to know that his real name is not Monk's but Edward Leaford. And he turns out to be Oliver's paternal Oliver to give half his inheritance, which proves to be a meager to Monk's because he wants to give him a second chance. And Oliver Twist, who is known for providing second chances, happily complies with it and gives a second chance to the monk. Monk leaves London and he goes to America, but in America he joins a criminal gang and he ultimately dies in the prison. Now, fourth character is eliminated from the society. Artful Dodger died, Nancy died, after whom Bill Sykes died, and now Monks is also dead. Now, Mr. Brownlow goes to visit the old reprobate in Newgate Gaol, where Fagin's terror at being hanged has caused him to come down with fever. Now, here we come to know that even Fagin has been arrested and he is in the prison and death sentence had been pronounced. As Mr. Brownlow and Oliver leave the prison, Fagin screams in terror and despair as a crowd gathers to see his hanging. Now, on a happier note, Rose merely turns out to be the long-lost sister of Agnes. She is therefore Oliver's aunt. She marries her longtime sweetheart, Harry, and Oliver lives happily with his savior, Mr. Brownlow. Noah Claypool becomes a paid semi-professional. Looking at Oliver Twist and how does Oliver Twist look at the end of the novel? We have the artful Dodger who is caught and is transported to Australia. Nancy is killed by Sykes. Later, Sykes also dies accidentally. Monk's real name is Edward Leaford. We come to know that he is the paternal half-brother of Oliver Twist. He goes to America and is eventually killed there in America. Fagin is arrested and is hanged, and Oliver Twist lives happily with his guardians. So that was, guys, about Oliver Twist. We dealt with Oliver Twist in detail and have made an attempt to cover the plot of the Oliver Twist and to remember some important points from Oliver Twist. Thank you.